Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to our webinar this afternoon, all about marketing, how to boost your presence and appeal in a competitive market. If you haven't already, you've been sent a link, or it's also in the chat where you can download a workbook for today that'll give you a little bit of space to do some work as we go along. So today's not just about teaching you information, it's also about helping you apply it. So to give you a little bit of background before we jump into things today, how I come to be here. So my name's Jeremy Carter. I'm the CEO of Rapport Leadership, and I've been a business coach for the last 22 years. I originally was an engineer and worked in the corporate world for a large technology company, managing their operations in Oceania. But my real passion is in helping business owners, helping small business owners become larger business owners. And marketing is really one of the critical things that differentiates if your business is going to be successful or if it isn't. As an organization, we work one-to-one with individuals doing coaching. We work with councils to provide business education programs to support local businesses. And we also deliver management and leadership skills training to organizations. Because at the end of the day, if you want to have a great business, you've got to have a great team. And the quality of the team that you're able to attract always comes back to the quality of the leadership that you have and the culture that you're able to build. Please feel free to ask questions as we go using the Q&A, and we will do our best to answer them as we go, or we also have an open Q&A session at the end. It'd be also great if you could introduce yourself and your business on the chat, just so we can tailor our examples and make sure we cater to all of the businesses in the room. So I'd like to thank the Sutherland Shire Council Economic Development Department for making these webinars possible. This is number 2 in a series of 3. If you haven't already, make sure you go to the Sutherland Council local business page, and you'll discover there's a lot of resources to support your business, from the newsletter called Business Now to a grants finder, so you can get money to support the growth of your business. And also there's a specific tool called .id that we'll talk a little bit about today that can also be a very powerful tool to help you in developing the marketing plan for your business. So welcome Shane from Gymea Community Aid and Information Service. Thank you so much. We've got Ali Piper from Paul's Plus Consulting and a dog training business. Rhonda, who's a professional services business. No barriers to entry and many competitors. So we'll definitely talk about differentiation for you today. We've got Vicky from the Shire Vet. Welcome along. Catherine from Janali Healthcare. Chiropractors, remedial massage therapists. Pilates Power and Physiotherapy, Cronulla. Excellent. Welcome, everyone. I'd also like to take an opportunity to formally welcome our 2 amazing guest speakers who are specialists in the marketing field. So for anyone based on the Sutherland Shire, I'm sure you've heard of the Collective Co. They're based out of Caringbah, and they're very well known for their work in all things to do with digital marketing. So Kristy, do you want to share a little bit of your story about where you came from and why you started the Collective Co?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So my name's Kristy Paltridge. I set up the Collective Co. about 16 and a half years ago now. I've come from a big corporate background, predominantly in the property space. About 16 years ago, I actually got made redundant from Mirvac, and at the time had 2 little kids at home. So decided to do a big shift, and it was, obviously a bit of a frightening shift, but I did it anyway and took the leap and started up my own business, and pretty much haven't looked back from that day. So now I'm mother of 3 and run an amazing business. As we've said, it's a local Sutherland Shire marketing agency based in Caringbah. And we have got a brilliant team that ranges from all different sort of facets of marketing in terms of internal skill set. And also a really amazing graphic design and branding team.
Did we say a mother of 3 or a mother of 21 when you include staff?
Yes, 21.
Excellent. And with you, I believe we've got Gretchen, who's certainly been a long-term asset to the business and works with some of their top accounts. Gretchen, do you want to share a little bit about you?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I've been working with Kristy for about 8 years now. Previously was in publishing mainly, working in magazines across a lot of publications here and over in the UK. But yeah, the role with Collective Co is just amazing. I mean, just being local and being able to be so close to home and have, be working with people in the local community, it's unbelievable. It's really great. So, it's good to help local businesses get off the ground and see them grow as well.
Fantastic. Great to have you both here, and thank you for bringing your time and expertise to share with our community. So we got a lot to cover, and to be honest, we could easily spend 4 or 5 hours on this, but today we really want to open up your eyes to some of the stuff that you know that you should be doing, but more importantly, how do you get into it and how do you apply it to start getting some results for your marketing? For people who've been marketing for a while, some of the things you can fine tune, and really also what the next step of marketing may look like for you. So make sure you have your pens and paper ready. There's going to be lots of nuggets of wisdom. And we'll be also, if you're willing to share with us as we go through some of the exercises back in the chat, then we'll do our best to provide you with feedback in terms of how you get the most out of this. And today we're going to change your thinking about how do we turn marketing and advertising from an expense into an investment. We're going to give you ideas on very low-cost marketing strategies that can generate very high-quality leads. So if you're sitting there thinking, gee, this marketing sounds great, Jeremy, but I haven't got any money, don't worry, we've got some great strategies for you that will help you then bring in the clients you need so you have got a marketing budget. All righty. Is anyone here aware of a direct competitor to you that generates more money and profits than you, and they have an inferior product? And I bet every single one of you probably say yes. And it doesn't matter how large your business is. All businesses face the same issues. Let's take the example of Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Coca-Cola has a 70% market share. Yet in every blind taste test study that they do, Pepsi wins every single time. So Pepsi is clearly the superior product. Why does Coke outsell it 2 to 1? And the answer at the end of the day is marketing. They spend more on marketing. They're better on their messaging. They have built a very loyal user base over the years. So this is to remind you that even if you don't have the best product, you can still build a really successful business if you master the marketing. The number one reason why you probably don't have $1 million business right now is you haven't developed the $1 million mindset and developed the $1 million marketing tools that will help you get there. And in small business, one of the best reasons to be in small business is it's all about how you learn. It's a very rapid platform for personal growth. So for you to be successful today, I want you to switch off that little thing in your head that says, I know. Because when we share stuff with you and you think, well, I know, you're not going to do anything about it. Instead, I want you to think, well, how well are we actually doing that now? And more importantly, how can we do it even better? The big challenge I see with business owners is they're just burning money on marketing without a real strategy and not getting consistent results. So some of the questions that I often hear as a business coach is, well, where should I be spending my money? Jeremy, I've been offered a full-page magazine ad at 50% off. Should I take it? Another real problem for business owners is they're quite inconsistent with their marketing. And let me start with this right up front. You may want to write this down. There's 2 rules to success when it comes to marketing. Number 1, it's better to be different than it is to be the best. Number 2, it's about consistency, which means that you need to be clear about how you're different, and we need to communicate that message over and over and over and over again before it starts to actually get through. For business owners, a lot of them don't believe in their own businesses enough to actually get out there and market them. But let me put it to you this way. If you think you have a great service, then you have a moral obligation to market it well, to get out there and help those clients that really need your assistance. So let's jump in and talk a little bit more around, well, how do we do this? And it never fails to surprise me how often people come to me and they say, Jeremy, can you help me get more customers? Or Jeremy, can you help me double my turnover? And I'll often reply, what about if we halve your turnover and double your profit? Would that be a better outcome? But the challenge with customers' turnover and profit is they're numbers that we can't actually control. And the reason for that is their outcomes. If you want more customers, sorry, you can't have them. What you can have is a marketing machine that generates leads and a sales engine that converts those into customers. And one of the big secrets for your business is if you can't manage it, you can't measure it. You need to know what the core numbers are that will really drive your business and your business profitability. So how do we get from customers to turnover? And it's pretty simple, really. At the end of the day, it's about how often your customers buy from you and how much do they spend on average. That gives us our turnover. And to go from turnover to profit, we have profit margin. So these 5 items, lead generation, conversion rate, number of transactions, average dollar sale, and profit margin, are the levers that we need to pull in our business to build a successful business. So let's just take a really simple example. With a small business that's generating 100 leads a month, 1 in 4 of those are turning into a customer, means we're getting 25 customers a month. These customers are buying about once a month, spending about $100 each time. So we're turning over $25,000 a month. 20% profit margin gives us $5,000 in the bank at the end of the month. That's a nice little business, yeah? So what would happen if we were to increase each one of these numbers by just 10%? So instead of 100 leads, if we did our marketing a little bit better with the same budget, could we bring in an extra 10 leads? And the answer is absolutely. And if we upgraded, for example, our company profile or our sales process, could we convert at 27.5% as opposed to 25%? Absolutely. So suddenly, instead of 25 customers, we have 30 customers. Now, if we could make them an offer to buy once more from us or to spend 10% more, and for many of you, that just means it's time to put up your prices. Everything else is going up, so it's important that your prices also reflect your business costs if you're going to stay profitable. So suddenly, we've gone from $25,000 turnover to $36,000. We work on our profit margins and increase those by 10%. Suddenly, we're at $8,000 profit. Small changes, big difference in outcome. Revenues increased 46%, profits increased 61%. Did we change anything major? No. You don't need to change anything major. What we've got to focus on is the small things that we can improve by 1 or 2%. And this is what's known as the winning edge formula. If you think about it in the context of the Melbourne Cup, the first place horse, $7 million prize money. Sorry, I got that wrong. $3.5 million prize money. The second place horse, $700,000. Is the first horse 5 times better than the second horse? And the answer is no. How much better did it have to be? Just a nose. And the same thing goes with your business. As you incrementally improve each part of it, you'll start to win more and more. But the challenge is your results are a non-linear curve. So it feels like you're just going flatlining for a while and then it starts to tip up and then we hit the inflection and we get the growth. So if you want to be an overnight success in business, I'm telling you now, it's not going to happen. It normally happens over 5 to 7 years because it takes time to figure out what works and what doesn't. And this is where we need to be scientists in our business, testing different strategies, looking at what works, figuring out how we do more of that and less of what doesn't.
And on that as well, Jeremy, I'd add that nowadays with digital marketing and the access that we've got to data is at your fingertips. So accessing that data, understanding it, reviewing it constantly is really important for a business to really, if you're putting money into advertising spend, it's making sure that you understand the results behind that spend because as I said, the data's there, so it's looking at it, reviewing it, and making sure that what you're doing is working.
Absolutely. So 100% agree. So I want to share with you 9 steps to marketing success. And this is a little bit of a ladder that we climb. And what do we know about ladders? Well, they're the number 1 cause of injuries in hospitals, where people end up in hospital. Where people often cause those injuries as they try to jump from the bottom to the top. They skip a few rungs. But the important thing is, again, when we do things a step at a time, we make sure that we build a solid foundation. And then the solid foundation allows us to scale and climb higher and higher. So we're going to run through this today. And the 9 steps to marketing success. The first is really understanding your target. Who's your ideal client, the ones that you would most like to work with? The second is figuring out, well, what's the message that's going to resonate with that market? The third is to get that message out there. The fourth is how we capture leads, then we nurture leads, then we convert them into customers, make sure we deliver our service, upsell, and then generate referrals. And out of every single form of marketing, referrals and word of mouth beat every other form every single time. If you can build a referral-based business, it's going to be a very, very strong business. But to do that, we need to master a lot of the basic marketing first. So if I was to ask you, let's ask the average business owner, who's your target market? And they're like, well, I'll take anyone. And I want you to know that's an absolute mistake. And the reason for that is, if you're not clear on who your ideal client is, how do we know where to market to them? How do we know what to market to them? And how do we know how to craft our message so they will actually hear it? So one of the secrets to success in marketing is called find a profitable niche. And instead of the niche being a mile wide and an inch deep, it's better to go for a niche that's an inch wide and a mile deep. And these days, with the internet and the connectivity, the more niched we become, the more we can actually justify a value proposition that is charging more for our services than we otherwise would. More money to be made as a specialist than as a generalist. So in order to be able to do this, we need to understand 2 things. One is demographics and one is psychographics when it comes to our target market. So how old are they? Where do they live? Are we more selling to females or males, parents, or single millennials? What's their income? What's their education? So all of these things that we can measure, we call demographics. Psychographics refer a lot more in terms of, well, how do they see themselves? What peer groups are they part of? Where do they fit in the community? So some of their values, their hobbies, their lifestyles, and their behavior. So when we take time to start to get clear on this, and you've actually got a page in your handouts where you can start to map this out, this is really the first step in terms of us getting clear on who our ideal clients are. And I want you to throw away the thinking that the clients that you have today are necessarily the clients that you want tomorrow. So a few years ago, I invested in a financial planning firm, and they were based out in Penrith. And their ideal clients was a mum and dad with a combined income of $150,000. And as a financial planner, there's not that much you can really do with that level of income. So what we did was we rebranded the business, we moved it to Bella Vista, we targeted the niche of doctors and medical specialists, and suddenly our average client, platinum client, went from $150,000 a year to $700,000 to $900,000 income a year. Can you have more fun as a financial planner with clients at that level of income? Absolutely. So you might not have platinum clients right now, but think about, if you could serve anyone, who would you most like to work with? Because if you enjoy working with these sorts of clients, you're going to have fun. You're going to get on like a house on fire, and you're going to deliver great results. Kristy, how did you get clear on ideal clients for you, for the Collective Co?
So it was identifying initially the type of business in terms of the sector and also the size of the business. So initially, when I first started the Collective Co, 16 years ago, we did a lot of work in one specific niche area, and then we moved, say for example, it was hospitality. We moved then beyond hospitality over the last 16 years into pretty much most sectors. But for us, it's actually, we're really big on ensuring that we work with clients that are like-minded in terms of general things like appreciating, the mutual respect for each other and things like that is really big for us as a business. We work really hard, and so do our clients. So it's making sure that we've got that common goal in place, which is to ensuring that they're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is so powerful, because when we understand that, and we understand there's some clients we don't want to work with, when those clients come along, we can actually say, listen, you're not for us. We'll refer you to some of our competition, which can be great.
But that takes time and confidence as well in order to do that. Like that's taken us.
Being able to.
Yeah, the first 10 years of business, it was you take whatever you can get, because you do feel a bit unsure, I guess, of yourself, or maybe it wasn't 10 years, but certainly at the beginning. But as years have gone on and feeling that confidence in what we do and what we deliver on and the quality of work that we deliver on, we know that we offer a great service and we've got an amazing team. So we want to reflect that with great people that we sort of work with.
Yeah, beautiful. It's so anyone out there who's fairly new in business, never tell anyone in Australia that you're a new or a startup business, because unfortunately in Australia, Australians are skeptical and they'll say, that's great. You've started a business, Jeremy, come back in 3 years if you're still running and maybe I'll give you a go. So where we can instead say, well, we're a growing business. And again, we want to get our language right, because again, marketing's all about communication. How do we get out the idea about our business out to the marketplace, and who do we want to listen in?
And I think is on that as well, if you've got a clear strategy in place, even if you are a startup business or have only been in business for say 12 months, with a clear plan around key messaging and whatnot, and making sure that you're on the right channels, targeting the correct people with the right messaging, etc. It's really important that that strategic piece of work's in place, and you sort of know where the business is going.
Beautiful. So some of the key psychographic considerations to think about for your target market. The number one motivator for most people is fear of loss. So when we think about where our product fits in, how do we prevent them suffering a loss? Or how do we prevent them suffering rejection? There's certain things that people move away from and certain things that people move towards. And again, the clearer we get on this, then it makes it easy for us to craft our marketing strategy. So success leaves clues. And it's always good to look at businesses that are successful and to say, well, what have they done really, really well? And one company that does this particularly well is Harley Davidson, in terms of understanding who is their target customer. What do they really want? And then they communicate that message again and again and again. So, bottom right-hand corner, dude with the bandana. Is he the target market for Harley Davidson? Well, you may see those people dressed that way more often than not riding Harley Davidsons, but I put it to you that actually the average Harley Davidson owner is actually an accountant who's looking for freedom. And again, when we put a face on our marketing, if they were to use this gentleman as the face of Harley Davidson, then again, that would push a lot of people away from the brand. So you can see, for example, here, this is how Harley, great bit of marketing by Harley, where the product is front and center. We can paint ourselves on this image, upstaging scenic outlooks since 1903. So some hints to also get clear on your target market. Look at your current customer base. Who are the A clients that you would just love to have more of? Look at your competition. See who they're servicing in terms of what are some of their great clients and what industries might be good to target. Understand the product behind the product. So Harley Davidson doesn't sell motorcycles. They sell freedom. that feeling that you can go anywhere when you like, just get away from it all. And it makes sense to do some research to think of then also, how do we craft our service offering really to match our ideal clients? So at the end of this, what we want to do is to come up with a little bit of an avatar or a persona for our ideal client. And the persona answers all of these questions, not just the demographics, but also the psychographics. What are their fears? What are their problems? What are their goals? What keeps them awake at night? And then how will we go about developing a marketing message and getting it out there in front of them? When it comes to marketing messaging, Kristy or Gretchen, how many times do people need to see a message before it starts to get through?
Quite a number. Yeah, quite regularly, to be honest.
Remember at the beginning, I said 2 rules. One is to be different. The second is to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I think the research shows that people need to see your message 30 to 50 times before it really starts to sink in. And this again is why organizations typically use a mix of marketing, because each time you see a brand, subconsciously, your trust for that brand actually increases. And this is why a lot of organizations use remarketing. Have you ever visited a website like a shoe store, let's say Nike on the internet, and then wherever you go browsing the web for the next week and a half, the Nike store ads follow you, inviting you to come back? Yeah, this is what's also called saturation advertising. People need to see the message from multiple different places and multiple times before they'll be convinced to say yes. So, thinking about your business, make sure you jot down a few ideas as we go in terms of who your ideal clients we'd like them to be. Here's another reminder. You might not have a product and you could still end up as $1 billion company. Red Bull didn't have a product. They went to Thailand. They discovered that there was a local energy drink that the locals were drinking. They took it back. They put it inside a fancy can. And they went out there and advertised and built $1 billion company on the back of that. Why? They understood marketing. And it's pretty cool if you look at some of the background in terms of how did they actually get into the culture. And one of their secret marketing strategies was actually littering. So they would take bags full of empty Red Bull cans and they would strew them outside nightclubs at sporting events. And people would see these cans everywhere and think, wow, it must be really popular. I'd better try that. Great marketing can build a great business. So as we zoom in on this niche, it's good to say, well, are there enough people who fit my criteria? You know, instead of being a generalist. So for example, Dinesh from Supply Chain Business Solutions said hi, and he says, you know, we offer marketing, forecasting and planning software to all sizes of businesses. And the challenge if we try to communicate that out to the marketplace is because we're trying to talk to everyone, the message gets lost. So it may be a lot better to actually focus in on a specific niche within that industry to say, well, fast-moving consumer goods. Our software is specialist in that area. So we can tailor all of our messaging around, well, what's the benefit of this particular software platform in that particular industry? Great tools to use. It's a little bit like surfing. When you go surfing, do we wait until the waves upon us before we start paddling? Or should we start paddling early? And Google Trends is a great tool by Google that allows us to see what's happening in terms of global or Australian-based interest on products. So if you're thinking of launching a product, you know, if you were, for example, have a look at interest in taxi cab licenses, that would tell you it's a dying industry. But if we were to look at, for example, industries that address health for baby boomers with demographics at the moment, that's something that's increasing and growing year on year. And then we can also do research in our local area. So Sutherland Council actually subscribes to a tool by the name of ID, Informed Decisions, which takes all the data from the, what do we call it when we do the census and we share all that information? And it provides a portal where you can actually look at your local area and say, well, where are the people who suit my demographic the most? So if you want to open a childcare centre, it would obviously make sense to be in an area where there's lots of households with young kids, yeah? If we're going to be doing letterbox drops instead of doing the whole area, let's focus on the specific streets or sections where we have the highest concentration of the best possible prospects actually for our service. So that's a free tool that's available to you on the Sutherland Council website. Another example of a client that I worked with who was making good money when he started. You know, he was working from home, had a young kid around his legs, had an apprentice, and they were doing residential gate automation. And he said, Jeremy, my number one goal is to get out of my home and to, you know, get a factory unit so we can have a bit more of a professional premises. And it's always good with a business to ask yourself, well, if the business is the vehicle, where is it leading me to? The business ought to be the vehicle that provides you a combination of both cash flow and lifestyle. If it can't do that, you're probably better off going to work for someone else. But the challenge with Blake's business at that time was he was doing so much residential. And residential work, what happens is it takes quite a bit of time because people want you to come out in person. They tend to want to negotiate the price a lot. And again, the conversion rate, when you tie it all back in, again, we put in a lot of time for every customer. So with Blake's business, we said, well, what would your ideal customer be? And instead, we focused on commercial clients. So doing commercial gate automation, car park automation. So now his average dollar sale, instead of being $2,500 for a residential gate automation, it's $25,000 to $50,000 for commercial sites or for ANPR parking solutions. So you've got to have a think about, again, where can we get a great niche and be a specialist in a marketplace, because that will really help your business grow exponentially. Be memorable, be different. It's okay to stand out. In fact, it's essential to stand out. Gretchen, you want to talk to us a little bit about being memorable and some of the ways you do that with clients?
It's developing, we look at their USPs, which are the unique selling points. And we focus on those, we look at their strengths, we look at all these things, and then we highlight them in their messaging. So, we got things that stand out for them as opposed to their competitors. And that's where we highlight in our messaging and make sure it's sent across in every platform that we're on.
Yeah, and the thing I love about this is, in 1 minute, literally in 10 seconds, looking at this image. And by the way, if you want to see some great case studies, go to thecollectiveco.com.au. There's fantastic case studies there. But the power of an image is worth 1,000 words. And Motel Molly, we can obviously tell it's not a corporate. It's quite boutique. It's probably a little bit farmhouse-esque in terms of the fashion and design, but it's designed to feel like home. And that's what gets communicated to me through these graphics.
I will obviously share some more information on the case study around Motel Molly a bit later on, but the client was really open to be quite creative in the brand piece. We worked with them really in-depthly around sort of their branding, their brand messaging, and then, what in terms of, I guess, that memorabilia, that really showcased in all the touch points of that brand. So whether it be photography, videography, copywriting,
design elements,
all the aspects that we launched the hotel. It is, you're right, it is very boutique in its place in Mollymook. It's a gorgeous place, and so we selected imagery like the one that's on screen now to really reflect what's obviously down the road. So again, as Gretch mentioned around those USPs, it's important to identify and spend the time to really understand what is unique about your business, your product, your service, yourself, to really identify that, to move forward and understand how to then market it.
And this comes back even to the choice of your business name.
Absolutely.
Some people select really clever business names, but they're too clever and people can't remember them.
Yeah.
So again, if we can find a way to have a name that's catchy or in some way different,
and not too long,
it makes our life a lot easier in terms of marketing. And it's also one of the great things I think to think about for your business is to develop your brand story, which is your story of why your business exists, how it started, how you help clients or help ease suffering in terms of the services that you offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, 3 things that most businesses think about in terms of differentiation. And here's the thing. If your business isn't differentiated, then you're a commodity. And what do we know about commodities is you can't charge a premium for them. It's the lowest priced wins. And when we think about a service, people want it fast, people want it cheap, people want high quality. But the thing is, you can't have all 3 of those. It just doesn't go together. And most businesses will focus on choosing 2 out of those 3. So if we were to take the automotive market as an example, cheap might be a Kia, quality is a Toyota, a fast car might be an Alfa Romeo, an easy car is a Tesla. Just amazing how they use technology to make these cars so easy to use. For the best service, Lexus by far. And if we're after luxury, well, then obviously Mercedes. And you can take this analogy and use it in your particular industry to have a look at, well, where are the other competitors actually positioning themselves? And where should we position ourselves to find our profitable niche? Kristy, any thoughts on this?
I think it just from our end, it's really, again, I guess, drawing back to the strategy piece and understanding the business, the brand, the product, where you sit in the market to ensure that when you're thinking about then, for example, the channels that you're going to utilize to market your business, product or service, you are selecting the right avenue that touches on, for example, luxury, highlighting the target audiences, as you've already mentioned, Jeremy, and the importance of identifying your target audience to then see where do they sit in this circle.
Beautiful.
So a lot of matrices that we sort of work on and look at on a regular basis.
So when we understand how we're different, what we want to do is to start to craft a unique selling proposition. So why people should hire you over and above your competition or doing it themselves. And then what we'll often do is we'll work this into a tight tagline and use it again and again. So finger licking good, for example, for KFC. Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. Maybe that should be the most woke place on earth at the moment. But again, all of this is about how do we get an actual, there's head space and there's heart space. And, organizations spend millions and millions of dollars to get their messages across. So Bunnings, obviously, lowest prices guaranteed. Coles, down, prices are down. Woolworths, the fresh food people. But one of the things when we do this is that we then start to become the default choice for clients. And we think about Bunnings, for example, lowest prices guaranteed. Now, let me ask you, is Bunnings the cheapest place to buy your hardware? And the answer is no, but they're very clever. A lot of the items they sell, you can't buy anywhere else. They're specific to them. On the big name products, the specials, again, they're very price competitive. And they rely on the fact that 98% of people are too lazy actually to price shop. They just think, well, I'll get the cheapest price at Bunnings and I'll go there.
They offer them on pallets as well, so it's about the experience where people go.
So our brand promise basically sits in the middle of the services that we can offer, what people want, but also the niche in terms of what the market doesn't provide. Instead of going in head-to-head competition versus established businesses that are already doing that, we want to figure out, well, how can we do things a little bit different and create a brand promise that we can then again communicate to our marketplace. So this is a really useful tool. When people ask you, well, what do? You can use this little framework. We help a specific target market who have a specific type of problem to solve that problem, our promise, in a certain time period. So for example, for myself as a business coach, I help business owners normally in the revenue from $500 to $1 million revenue who want to grow to $5 million quickly and need to learn how to put a great team around them to get their business set for growth in the next 90 days. So it's a really simple structure to use for communication, both one-to-one, but also when we use through marketing to be able to communicate our message to the marketplace. So Kristy, let's hear this one for your business.
Sorry, you just put me on the spot here. We help businesses of any size developing their marketing and brand strategies to ensure that their brand promise is, targeting the right sort of audiences within the next 30 days.
I think, sorry to jump in, I think we also help them develop marketing objectives, work for them, which feed into their overall business objective as well. So we sort of sell ourselves as an outsourced marketing department. So we work for you, but we just don't sit in the same office as you. So whatever your business goals are, we do the marketing side of things to help achieve those goals.
Beautiful. We help business owners of growing businesses who are frustrated that their marketing is not getting results, to really craft their message, to get it out to the marketplace with passion, to turn their marketing from an expense into an investment in the next 60 days.
It also helps allow them to spend time on their business, running their business, which is what they should be doing. So we take that load off them.
Absolutely. Allow them to focus on what they're doing best. And when it comes to branding, people judge the things they don't understand about your business based upon the things that they do. So a good brand really helps present your business in the best possible light. And one part of branding is also understanding that colors also have a lot of communication. So for example, blue is authority, red is danger or excitement. That's why police cars have red and blue lights on top. Danger, authority, danger, authority. And this is where we want to build a brand. How would we call it, Gretchen?
Too many. Sorry, say that again.
You do this when you're working with brands to actually develop whole color palettes that help communicate their message.
It's really just looking at their brand promise, their brand messaging, and then it's really understanding the business to then see what reflects best from a brand standpoint to then pick out the right color palette that obviously reflects them as a.
So it's a brand DNA almost, like who they are and what they do and who they're targeting and then, like, what their mission vision is.
Yeah, we call it their brand DNA.
Oh, that's the word, yes.
Their mission vision,
Here's the thing. If you're looking at a business, it's a long-term, it's 5 to 7 years at least and sometimes longer. If you're at the beginning, my suggestion is invest in good advice. Yes, you can go on the internet and you get a free logo creation, but at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. A really good logo and brand is going to make your job exponentially easier. When you understand what you stand for.
Yeah, it's really important as well in terms of brand creation and what we talked about just then with brand DNA and building out that brand piece is also we work really closely with companies to build out your brand values, your mission statements, your vision statements,
your tone of voice.
And a lot of things filter from there. Because your values and your vision need to be then obviously communicated across all of your channels as well, where appropriate.
And sometimes they can be communicated through the colours that you choose. And
And if you think about it, a good brand is a bit like a diamond ring. If you don't clean it every so often, it's not going to sparkle as it should. And this is why it also, and again, if your brand's over 5 years old, then it's probably starting to look dated already. So it's important to continue investing in your brand to, again, make sure that you're contemporary and you continue to put the best foot forward in terms of connecting with your target audience.
And I think with that, it's not always a complete rebrand, right? It might just be a tweak. It might just be a modernization of fonts. It might just be a little update of a color, a little bit of a graphic element. So you're not talking like you have to rebrand every 5 years. It's just, just modernizing it slightly.
And if you want to see an example of branding and have a great laugh, look on YouTube for Palessi. So this is Payless shoes. And, normally they're known for having the cheap, reliable shoes. So they created an upscale boutique called Palessi. And they put all of their products in there and they invited all the influencers and made it look $1 million. and they were selling $20 pairs of shoes for $400 to these influencers. And the influencers were raving about them on camera, saying, my God, this is so different. These guys are so innovative. I can't believe it's only $400. And they went to the checkout to pay, and then they were told that, again, these are actually Payless shoes. You can have them for 20, not 400. But that's the power of a good brand. A great brand people will pay a premium for because it's more than just being about a product. A chain is only as strong as the weakest link. If you've got a great website, but you've got really poor follow-up systems, or if your email signatures look all out of whack, or your quotes look really low quality, again, this is where it can fail. So when we develop a brand, we want to make sure that we're consistent across all of the touch points that we have with our clients. And I found this example on the Collective Co website of an ophthalmologist that they worked with. So they started first with, well, what's the logo? What's the brand? What are the colors? Then how do we communicate that in a consistent way across not just the business cards, but also the website to the associated literature to create really a seamless experience? We can see the target market as well in there.
That consistency is key. You're spot on, Jeremy, around anything from your receptionist answering the phone, how they conduct, that call, to your email signature, to
the tone that you use in, your literature, your corporate collateral versus
your online presence.
Yes, everything.
Google ads, if you're running ads versus meta ads, etc. So.
And this is one of the reasons why you're great at what you do, because you're damn fussy.
We are.
Because it's all about those finer details.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what's the role of marketing? To get us new opportunities, new potential clients, to convert those into clients, and to make sure our existing clients come back time and again. There's a picture of a bath plug there. So before you spend more money on marketing, make sure that you've mastered your service delivery. If we can't deliver a great service, then we just need to keep marketing, and it's going to be very expensive. A bit like trying to fill your bathtub with it before putting the plug in first. Another one of the mistakes that many smaller businesses make is they invest all of their money into attempting to attract new clients, instead of actually balancing that marketing investment to make sure that your existing clients feel loved and ensure your existing clients have such a great experience they come back time and again, and they also refer other people to come and deal with your business. So at the end of the day, what's marketing? It's communication and education. Communication is about getting an idea out of your head and out there into the marketplace to create some awareness. Education is about educating people why they should do business with you over and above your competitors. And we need to do that consistently. Marketing is not advertising. Advertising is a very separate thing. Most small businesses need to start with marketing first, and the mistake they make is they jump into advertising first. And as such, they waste a lot of money on ads that just don't work. And here's the thing. If you go to an advertising platform like Facebook or Google, they're very good at helping you spend your budget. And it's possible to spend a lot of money and get almost no result, or generate leads, but they're the wrong kind of leads. So this is why with marketing, why it's really critical that we know who we're talking to first, what are their pain points, and what's our message. And this comes into our customer journey, the marketing funnel, which is about understanding that in terms of the marketplace that's ready to buy your product in the next week, is typically 3%. And if you focus all of your marketing on them, it's very expensive. But what we need to do with our marketing to make it really work is to target people earlier in their purchasing journey. Before they get to, I need to buy today, it's, hey, I'm thinking about getting a solar system. What are some of the considerations? Okay, so to have tools, resources, videos, things like that, that help people at an earlier stage is going to help people engage with our company or brand, build trust, and then give us the opportunity to turn them into customers. So let's hear a little bit more about some case studies, shall we?
So I wanted to start on, if we just go to the next slide, sorry, Jeremy. So in terms of, and obviously I've sort of touched on this today a few times, but we really do focus a lot of our energies on marketing strategies. As we've sort of touched on, like Jeremy just mentioned then, that there may be clients that jump into advertising before really identifying their marketing and their marketing efforts around, you know, the target audience, doing potentially a SWOT analysis, looking at your USPs. A lot of clients do come to us, or businesses, whether they be startups to, you know, well-established organizations, saying like we're saying yes to everything, but we're not sure if anything's working. So there's basically, you know, they've got lots of opportunity, they've got a well-established brand, but they don't have a clear plan. So what we, no matter what business, no matter what size, what industry, we always start with a marketing strategy. And it's really important that we do that, because obviously what we also do is a workshop. So we sit down with clients to really do a bit of a deep dive into the business. Where are you at now, and where do you want to be moving into the future? So when we say into the future, we don't go like in 10 years, we sort of look at the next 5 to 4 to, the next sort of 2 to 4 year plan. So we look at and identifying and discussing the business goals. So it might be revenue, etc., to then build out a marketing strategy that will align with those business goals. So we build out strategies that's very much in conjunction with whatever that business is, whether it be a product or service. And we build strategies that really identify opportunity. So it might be opportunity around, you know, advertising for, like identifying key messages for the business. So we set goals. We're really big on ensuring that when we look at a strategy, we've got set objectives. So what are those objectives for that business? Is it, you know, brand awareness? Is it increasing your sales? It may be all of the above, generating leads. You know, there's a lot of call to action opportunity when it comes to digital marketing. So it's ensuring that when we're looking at those CTAs, we've got that very clearly identified when we're building out our marketing efforts online. Again, looking at data and then analysing those results is something that we can look at any time. And it's really important that that's sort of looked at and reviewed quite frequently. You know, obviously things around planning for seasonality. So ensuring that, you know, you understand the business, the peaks and flows, the, you know, how that may impact the business and then therefore sales, you know, staffing, etc. So it's looking at those demands within the business over that 12-month period and identifying strategies to really ensure that we're prepared for those times of the year. Staying flexible, so ensuring that, you know, customers and demand does change. So ensuring that flexibility around your strategy is really important. We don't just build a 12-month strategy and leave it. We review it all the time. We look at the data, the stats that sit behind everything that we do to ensure that because your target audience may change, and it probably will change. So it's identifying how the shifts and changes in what you do month to month to then possibly shift your planning. Because if you leave it for 12 months and you think that you're running just an always-on campaign on Meta, for example, you'd be wasting your money. So just having that constant review of everything that you do is really important. And as I said here, in terms of tracking results, we look at data all day, not all day, but every day. We've got really great reporting systems so that from a click of a button, we can look at everything from Google to Meta to EDMs, like, so we'll talk about database in a minute, from your website, you know, analytics, everything's pulled into one report that we then do a bit of an analysis on, well, what's working well, what type of content's working well versus not. Some things don't work well either. So
I think that's the beauty of digital marketing is that you can stop things straight away. So if you've got a budget and say you're doing Meta ads, for example, you know, you've got 2 different types of ads. One's working really well, one's not working. You can instantly stop the one that's not working and put all your money, shift your focus into the one that is working, and then up that one. So I think that's just one of the things that what why it's so important to track the results, because you can make those immediate shifts straight away.
Yeah, and like thinking about the touch points as well of your brand and your messaging. So here is a really good example of like digital marketing as a whole. We can look at a business or it might be a launch of a product or whatever it is that we're marketing, and making sure that there's so many different digital touch points now that we can utilize to ensure that we're getting that out there to the market, and then retargeting as often as we need to ensure that we're getting that brand recognition. And sometimes, it's 30 times that someone views an ad, sometimes it's 10. So it really depends on the messaging, the copy, the creative. Like there's a lot of areas that we might run an ad, for example, that's 3 different pieces of creative, but only one's getting cut through in the market. But it's the same, basically, it's the same message, maybe different creative. So that, what we call A/B testing, is really important, again, based on, your advertising dollar is so important for us as a business, because it's someone's bread and butter. We take every dollar as it's our own, and we ensure that we're utilizing that advertising spend in a really clear and clever way, so it's not wasted.
Yeah, again, with this being the messaging and how often you need to see it, it's being across multiple platforms as well is really important. So, obviously you might have your website, but if you do go down the Google AdWords thing, then you might have your organic socials, you might have paid socials, you might have an EDM that goes out, you might do some a news flyer drop, you might do a newspaper ad. So it's just having your brand and the consistent messaging across multiple different platforms is really important.
And the question that we often get is, how much should I spend on marketing and advertising?
Normally, they say as a ballpark, it's 10% of your revenue. Some businesses adhere to that and really believe that that's the right level of spend that they should be putting into their marketing budget. Others go above or below. So
it's also what you can afford. I mean, if you haven't done ads before, and that's the beauty with digital advertising, you set the budget. Like, if you want to test the waters and say, I've got $350 to spend this month on something, I want to see how it goes, and we go, sure, and we can put it all into one thing. We can spread it out across a couple of different things and see which is working. But you set that, and then hopefully.
Or ideally as well, most clients. Well, what we recommend as well with most clients is that we can give that recommendation of dollar spend.
Based on what their objectives are, what type of business you are.
Yeah, and obviously our expertise in all those different platforms. So we've listed here in terms of the digital space, there's obviously website, Google Ads, SEO, which is search engine optimization. That's more of a long-term approach for ensuring that you get up there from a Google searching standpoint. It is more expensive, SEO, and you need to commit to it. So I wouldn't go ahead and do an SEO campaign and then stop it within 2 months, because you're wasting your money.
But there is an organic SEO free.
Organic, definitely, but paid SEO, it needs to be part of your strategy, essentially. And then obviously there's content marketing, as Gretchen's mentioned, like the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is becoming quite big now.
Not just dances, it's lots of other things.
It's
getting a lot of cut through. Like, we've got quite a few younger girls in the office here, and they use that as their search engine. They won't go to Google, they'll search on TikTok. So if you're there, then they'll have.
And it does depend on obviously going back to your strategy, you're identifying your target audience. It may be then a recruitment drive. So for example, for my business, the younger girls that have just come out of uni, they'll say, can we please run the TikTok account for TCC, which is what we call the Collective Co. And I sort of had to sit back and understand, why would we use TikTok for the Collective Co? Am I going to get business from this? And then I decided that possibly not. I'm not going to get new business from TikTok. However, it's all around recruitment. So that's my objective behind the team utilizing TikTok, and the time that it takes for them to use that channel. So the awareness piece that TikTok's built for the Collective Co is huge. Now that sort of age bracket where Gretchen's right, they use it for news it's their place to go for every piece of
Yeah.
information.
So if you want to attract the new generation,
Quite
not the millennials,
scary
but the
how
youngest
much-
ones, again, they're not going
Quite
to
scary how much
go
they
through
can be
Google. TikTok's the one.
Exactly.
But it's also identifying and understanding the digital landscape. It is constantly changing and it's evolving, and it, you know, algorithms, and as we just talked about with TikTok, there's so much happening, and it is honestly, it's almost, there's no point in going to university to learn about digital marketing because there's so much. It evolves so frequently and quickly that.
So that's the thing with TCC. They're going to make it easy for you. They're going to show you what to work on first to get results.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you know, and then if you're a B2B business rather than B2C, so if you're direct to customer versus direct to business. So if you're targeting the business, what we call B2B, we use LinkedIn, for example, and LinkedIn advertising is really effective. It can drill down quite significantly to, you know, industry, organisation, to role, the specific role or title of that person that you're wanting to target. And then, so we're just moving on to successful marketing campaigns.
I mean, the most important thing to do, as we've sort of reinforced a few times now, is to set an objective. So, you know, you define what you want to achieve, whether it's sales, whether it's leads, whether it's brand awareness, do you want followers, like what do you want to do for your business, what do you want to get out of it? That's the most important thing to set straight away. And then we've mentioned again, knowing your audience, so understanding your customers, what their pain points are, what are their objections to purchase, what are their desires, how do they operate, you know, where do they get their information from, developing that clear message. So, you know, the campaign should have that single compelling message that speaks directly to customers. And
for all the boys that are sitting there today, I want to take this back. Marketing's just like fishing. Step one, you want to know what sort of fish you want to catch. And that tells you, number two, where you need to go and what sort of bait you need to put out there. And sometimes we know that information and we're sitting there fishing and we're still not getting bites, even though we followed everything up until there. What do we need to do? Sometimes we need to change the location slightly. Sometimes we need to change the bait. Sometimes we need to change the time. But this is what marketing strategy will do. It figures this out so you can then just run this again and again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. Your offer is really important, you know, whether what that is. Having that social proof. So, you know, people trust people, like recommendations and referrals.
Sorry, a little bit louder with the computer.
Recommendations and referrals, as you mentioned before, word of mouth is so highly important here. You know, using testimonials.
Yeah, identifying testimonials and asking customers for testimonials is really important. Even Google reviews.
And you might need to incentivize these. You might need to, you know, develop an incentive campaign around your referrals. So, you know, you get those, so they build up on Google or they build up on
Which
the
again
website.
leads back to your strategy. And I know I talk about this all the time because it really is quite an important piece of work, because what you look at is, well, how am I going to get testimonials from my clients, and how am I going to build a really successful and clear case study? How am I going to get more Google
Okay, so let's
online?
pause right there and let's say, how do we get testimonials from clients?
So one example is, like, say, for example, if you finished a job with a client, if you're a builder, how do you follow up with that client? Is it a gift that you say, thank you so much, with a follow-up email, with a link to your Google review? But you've got to get them at the right time. Like, obviously, you've done a brilliant job. You know that they're happy. If you have any questions around their happiness, around what you've done, I wouldn't be sending them a Google review, because you can't remove or delete Google reviews. So you want to make sure you're getting to them with that link, knowing that they're happy.
It might just be a question.
Okay, so here's the thing. Don't leave it to chance. Be willing to ask.
Yes.
Be willing
and make it
to
easy.
ask, but ensure, I mean, you should have a pretty good gauge as to whether your clients or customers are happy. People are very open with feedback generally. So when we're talking Google review, it's actually quite important that you get them at the right time. Because as we've said, Google reviews are excellent if they're a 5-star review. If they're a 1-star review, you can't remove it. So then it's a whole nother strategy to up your 5 stars, and that can take time. So it's more of a punish than a reward.
Fantastic.
Creating urgency and call to action is really important as well. Sorry, just going back to that. And that relationships and transactions is so important. So you want sales, or you want leads, or you want whatever it is, but you also want repeat business. And if you get people that will buy something once and get them coming back, that's half your job done. So it's really important to build those relationships, nurture your leads, and making sure that they're always looked after.
Here's a great strategy as well. When you think about, if we've worked with a great client, have a think about either their suppliers or their customers. And is there a way through which you could get an introduction to them, or they could help open doors for you? Happy clients opening doors creates all sorts of magic in your business.
Yeah, exactly. So true. So with Motel Molly here, here's just an example of their Instagram page. We started with Motel Molly when they first launched, obviously prior to them going to market. We did all of their branding, pre-launch campaigning, strategy, their website, all of their meta ads.
All their collateral and
pretty much everything from branding and marketing we did. So if we just go to the next page.
Well, the thing I love with this, normally, the headspace that people have with motels is not very nice and quite cheap. But this actually looks like I'm going to be going to the south of France.
And that's what they wanted. It's an older motel that they renovated, and it's a beautiful spot. So they've done the job perfectly, But
And I'm sure the people who rent rooms there, they roll up in their combi with their surfboard.
And they were open to, again, that creative space. So we branded some surfboards, some really cool old school bikes that you could use.
There's a vending machine with cocktails in there.
By the pool.
Umbrellas that were all, we worked with.
So we almost got 15,000 followers before they even opened their doors. And that was with very little ad spend, but a lot of influencer marketing. I won't go on too much about influencer marketing, but be very careful with influencer marketing.
Okay, so something to keep in mind, and when we talk about this, two different types, marketing can either be expensive and dumb, by which I mean brute force, or it can be creative and cheap. When we put our heads together, when we come up with innovations, when we partner with others, it doesn't have to cost a lot, and it can generate amazing results.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, again, going back to the strategy, it's ensuring that you have got that right plan in place. With Motel Molly, we spent a long time with all of our internal resources. So internally, we've got, the likes of people that have come with a high knowledge around strategy, PR, brand, research, and the likes of all facets of marketing. So we brought all of those heads together, and we built out a strategy that was very clear, concise, etc. before we even went to market with this brand. And they got some really great results. And we're still marketing the business to this day. So that's, testament to the team and how well they work with this client. So Shore Hire is another client that we've worked with for many, many years. They're a national engineering firm that's actually just recently been bought out by an American-based company called United Rentals. So we're now working with United Rentals and their entire Australian portfolio of businesses that they've just acquired. But this is a few years ago when we first started doing a lot of marketing and advertising for Shore Hire, they had significant growth in a lot of what we were doing for the business. We did a lot of LinkedIn advertising work for them, and saw significant growth in a lot of their areas, particularly within their sales department. So that continued for years to come, and we still, as I said, do a lot of work with Shore Hire and now United Rentals from a digital marketing but also brand point of view. And the last case study we wanted to share was we do a lot of work with Feros Group, which is obviously a local hospitality organisation. Chris Feros is great. He's a great guy. He's very passionate about what he does. We've worked with him on and off for many, many years. We did the launch of Highfield, for example, and now we're working on Park Pavilion. We've done all of their branding. There's sub-brands there, which you will probably not recognised yet, but you will hopefully soon, because we're just about to go to market with a lot of these sub-brands within Park Pavilion. So it's Call Me Mama, Mr. Munro's, the Park Bistro and the Terrace. So they're all sort of sub-branding that will sit underneath the main hero of Park, which is obviously going to be a new hotel destination down in Cronulla, opening in May. So we often get tasks from Feros to do all of their individual hotel branding and website, and a lot of their digital work as well around ads and things like that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
No worries.
So the marketing is the lubricant that will make your business get to where it needs to go a whole lot faster. And we've been talking quite a bit up until now more about the marketing side of things, but advertising is about, well, if we want to go faster, this is again where we need to put a budget in, and this just again increases our number of opportunities. And when it comes to direct response advertising, which this is what it is, some of the things to keep in mind: a click to your website is not a lead. And we need to understand, basically, when people come to our website, how many of these are converting. And one of the problems with websites is people go there and they get confused because there's way too much information. They click around a few pages, they get distracted, and they're gone. So this is, again, when we're doing advertising, you want to think about having a squeeze page or a landing page on your website, which is one page of information related to the offer, and then with a, do you want this, yes or no? So whereas a website will maybe have a 0.5% to a 1% conversion rate, if you design a really good landing page, you can get upwards of 5 to 10% of clicks actually turning into leads. But this is where I really strongly advise that you get people who know how to do this for you. Don't do it yourself, or you'll waste a lot of money. The secret to turning marketing from an expense into an investment is testing and measuring. And that is, at the end of every month, you need a lead report. How many leads did we generate? Where did they come from? How much did that cost us? Is it working or is it not working? Do less of what doesn't work, do more of what does work. But the thing we've got to also separate is sometimes it's branding, which is just being seen, versus advertising, which is more about getting a direct response, getting people to opt in now. So we need to make sure we have a mechanism by which we capture all these leads and we nurture them. That is, we stay in contact with them. So down the bottom here, you can see a really simple funnel for an electronic marketing campaign. We're running ads on Facebook. It's costing us $1 per click to go to our website. 1 in 3 of the people on the landing page are saying yes. We're sending them a video to say, hey, thanks for connecting with us. We then send a little survey saying, would you like to find out more? So we're converting 10%. So for each survey response that's turning into a meeting, it's about $30. If we're converting 1 in 4 of those, then our cost per client is about $120. Is that good or bad? Well, the answer is it depends. It may be okay to invest $1,000 on winning a new client if it's the right type of client. But this is, again, where marketing, when we do it as a science, when we test and measure and track the results, it's very easy to figure out what works and then do more of it. Understanding your ideal client. I worked with a women's boutique once, and we did a bunch on who's their ideal client, and we came up with, well, it's actually a female who's bought a BMW in the last 2 years. So we thought about creating a strategic alliance, and we went to the local BMW dealer and we said, listen, what do you do for your clients after they've bought a car? And they're like, well, yeah, that's a good question. We service it when they bring it back. And we're like, well, how would you like to be able to offer them a gift? And they're like, well, that's a fantastic idea. So there were these silk nighties, retail $110, cost about $9 landed. Developed a letter that BMW sent out to all their female clients who had actually purchased a BMW to say, hey, thanks for shopping with us. We really, as a token of our appreciation, we'd like to give you a free silk nightie. You just need to go into the boutique to pick it up. Total cost for that campaign, $9 per person who walked through the door. Now, you think the average lady who's bought a BMW, who gets a free silk nightie, are they just going to take the nightie, or are they likely to buy something else when they're there if you have a good sales team? So again, marketing doesn't have to be expensive. It needs to be creative. When it comes to marketing, you know, when we think about a newspaper, if the headline doesn't grab us, we don't read the article. So when we're putting together marketing pieces, it's really critical that we come up with the right sort of headline that makes people say yes. So for example, if we take the marketing front for the Collective Co, how to bring in 10 new clients in the next 14 days without spending a cent, even if you don't have a database. You think there's a few people that headline would speak to? And I'm not saying that's what you should do, but when we create the right sort of offer or headline like that, it gets people to say, yes, I want that. Tell me more. We've got to have the right bait on the hook if we're going to catch the big fish. I also recommend keeping a marketing swipe file. So look at what sort of marketing speaks to you that seems to be working for others in the marketplace, and keep that on file to think about, well, instead of creating something from scratch every time, how can I learn from what others have done and use that? Smaller startup businesses, I'm aware we have quite a few of these today. My suggestion, this would be my priority. If I had $10,000 to spend on marketing, number one, get really clear on your avatar and, you know, the problem that they have. Number two, develop a really strong logo with branding, and think about potentially, if you're going to be in this for the long term, getting a trademark to protect your brand. We want to know all of the keywords for SEO. These are long tail keywords. So let's say you had a dentist business, you know, you wouldn't just want to try and rank for dentist. You'd want to perhaps rank for a long tail keyword, which might be periodontist, dentist, Blacktown, payment plan. Because what you find with long tail keywords is the longer they are, the closer people typically are to buying. And we use this to then develop your website. Over 50% of web traffic these days is from mobiles. So if you only have a website that's good on a desktop computer, you're missing half the market. You need to get your free Google business listing set up. Won't cost you a cent. Can be a great way to generate leads. Make sure in the name of your business that you put on Google, you also list what you do. So instead of just being the Collective Co, Marketing Agency, again, if you do that in the right way, can help attract a few more leads. Google is cracking down a little bit on this, but for $28, you can register another trading name for your business. So you can have the Collective Co and the Collective Co Marketing Agency, just as an example. Set up your social media pages, invest in a good company profile so people understand your business, have a strategy to get testimonials and reviews, and develop yourself a lead magnet. All of these things go together will give you a good foundation. Kristy, any you'd add on to that?
No, I think you've covered everything there.
Hang on one sec. Sorry. Stage 2, we go to video, webinars, podcasts, having an online store where people can purchase direct, electronic direct mails, so having your database go out to there. Actually, digital marketing is number one is set up your database.
I'd actually say the one thing that I think is missing is database and then email marketing, and how you use your data, not just for creating, for example, lookalike audiences online, but also how you communicate with your database on a frequent basis. And also things like setting up customer journeys, which you can do with the right platforms, ensuring that you're hitting your database with the right messaging.
Beautiful. Social media. Look, we could run a full day workshop on social media. I know plenty of businesses that are successful without social media, and I know plenty that are. The thing I would caution you on is you can waste a lot of time on social media if you don't know what you're doing. So again, choose the platform that's the best fit for the demographic you want to talk to. Think about how do we start to build a presence. A great one for startup businesses is Facebook community groups. in which you can also post your business. This can be a great way to do some low-cost marketing. But we can see in terms of social media reach, Facebook and Instagram basically rule the roost. But if you're a B2B business, then you really want to be on LinkedIn. That's where you're going to get a lot more traction.
Also, if you're a creative business, Pinterest is excellent as well. So if you're in the interior design or like that sort of crafty space, Pinterest is a really, homewares in that sort of area. Pinterest is great.
A picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video is worth 100 images.
Very true.
Before you want to take on the world, start in your local area. So focus on winning clients in your own backyard first. Think about potentially strategic alliances or joint ventures. Think about getting out there with doing some networking or potentially joining some business referral groups. These can be great things to help you develop your marketing skills. There is a local business chamber. Highly recommend that as a way to get involved. Also, I'd recommend thinking about using LinkedIn, especially if you're a B2B business, to build a great network and to stay in contact with that network. How do you be successful in networking? Don't go to get business. Go to connect with people. Go to add value. Go to have conversations and find out what's going on in the marketplace.
Yeah, ask questions. That's the best.
If you're going to a networking function, my suggestion is your goal is to come back with 2 leads. If you come back with 2 business cards, that's a successful function. I would recommend getting to functions 15 minutes early. Survey all the name badges. Pick out the 1 or 2 that you really want to connect with. If you're sneaky, maybe even take a photo of the registration table. But then you can network with specific intent to really have conversations with the right sort of people who can open doors for you. Not just customers, but people who could introduce you to your target customers. Do you guys use networking much?
We've actually, when we talk about word of mouth and referral, we've built the business, even though we're marketing, on
Primarily.
We've never actually actively marketed the business in terms of advertising spend, but we've certainly built on a very unique referral sort of basis. So yeah, we do a bit of networking, but
It's usually just through word of mouth.
Yeah.
We know.
yeah.
So, capturing leads and nurturing, we need a good database, and we need to have a strategy around how do we get people to come back and buy from us again and again, and also refer other clients to us. So this is a really simple template that's in your handouts in terms of how could you build a 1-page marketing plan. Once you've set your budget for how much you're going to invest, then we look at the different lead sources that flow into the funnel. What are the have-to-dos versus what are the nice-to-dos? So, for example, if you're going after your first website, I'd suggest a budget of about $3,000 should get you a pretty good startup website. Then we need to look at, again, when we understand who we're talking to, what's going to be the best way for us to get in front of them? Is it through networking? Is it through alliances? Is it through generating some public relations type materials to show our qualifications? Or last of all, is it through some advertising? So when we do this and we stay in contact with our database using EDMs or potentially SMSs or social media, whatever it is, this again is going to help us reinforce and grow relationships, keep us front of mind, and keep opportunities heading our way. Also develop yourself a marketing calendar. So in particular businesses, there are some times of year that are better than others. For a lot of B2B businesses, what you find is basically from Melbourne Cup Day until Australia Day, it's very difficult to get meetings or to actually move those sorts of opportunities forward. If we're in a florist business, obviously, Valentine's Day, biggest day of the year, but we need to be marketing for that at least a month ahead of time. So how do we get people to say yes? How do we convert them from a lead into a customer? And the answer is make them an irresistible offer. Is it the puppy dog close, try before you buy? Is it a satisfaction guarantee? Here's one of the big things is we want to make it as simple as possible. The world's #1 shoe salesperson, they interviewed him and they said, "What's your secret?" And he said, "Look, I've been doing this for 40 years, and the secret is 2, not 3." And the reporter said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, when a lady comes in to try on a pair of shoes, she tries on one. And then I say, well, perhaps we could try on another pair as well. And she likes those, but then she wants to try on a third pair. If I bring out a third pair, I'll always take one away. Because if there's 3 options, she'll probably buy none. But if I just have 2 options, odds are she's going to buy 1 or maybe even 2. So when we put a proposal in front of a customer, my suggestion is make it easy, give them the option, give them the recommendation, and maybe give them an option on top. A confused prospect will never buy. And the thing is, they're probably not going to tell you they're confused or they don't understand. So we need to make it easy. This, this slide's probably 6 to 8 years old, but in terms of a website, I really like, when you think about your website, it's called, we've got to focus on above the fold, because we get 3 to 5 seconds for people to look at our website. And I think these guys did it really well. So with the name of their company, it's called Simply Headsets. We can very quickly see they've got offices in every state. They're Australian owned. On the right-hand side here, there's the 30-day satisfaction guarantee, rapid delivery Australia-wide, lowest price guaranteed. Companies they work with, like the Commonwealth Government. So if you go to a website, you can't figure out what it does, what its value proposition is, or who the target client is within 5 to 10 seconds, you're wasting your time. So have a think about with your website, how you do that. They've got a lot more sophisticated since I downloaded their website 5 years ago. Remember to have a budget to say thank you to your clients. Deliver a world-class experience. What's going to make them absolutely say, wow? What's going to make them tell others about it? Why does McDonald's have value meals? Why do large electronic manufacturers like Apple and Samsung come out with a new phone every year? And the answer is, again, at the end of the day, it's about the upsell. It's about getting clients to come back. It's about understanding when we have good, better, best. There's always some people who will pay for the best because money's not important to them, but we still want to be able to talk to the different sections of the database. For McDonald's, the would you like fries with that? That's, in Australia, that's worth over $1 million a week. The simple upsells. And this is where you want to think with your business, do I have a simple services menu where clients can tick what they actually want? These days where times are tight, you want to think wallet share more than just market share. So out of all the money that a client could be spending with my business, how much are they spending now? And if not, how do I get them to spend more with me versus my competitors? Does anyone know Flybuys? We go to, or the Woolworths Rewards program. How much do we need to spend to get a free flight from Sydney to Melbourne? On average, about $25,000. Do we still do it every time we go to the supermarket? Yes. Why? Because no one's too wealthy to not want free stuff. So also have a think about with your loyal clients, how are you looking after them, making them feel special and rewarding them for their loyalty? Lastly, referrals. Position them, ask them, track them, reward them. What gets measured gets done. What gets rewarded gets repeated. And here's the big thing. Don't go it alone. Build a marketing team to support you and to make life easier for you. So it was fantastic having Kristy and Gretchen from the Collective Co here. They're based in the Sutherland Shire, and I think they have an offer. If you're interested in finding out more, drop them a line. What's the email address? Hello?
hello@thecollectiveco.com.au.
Let me just type that into the webinar chat.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, whether it be even strategic development or sort of that ongoing marketing support, if you need any. So we do obviously ad hoc versus monthly retainer services. So it's very much dependent on the business and what's required.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the Q&A in just one moment. So we covered a lot of content today, and it's easy to go back and just get caught up in your day-to-day activity. So my suggestion is understand knowledge is not power. Knowledge only becomes powerful when we put it into action. So take some time to go back through your notes and really prioritize what you're going to action in the next 7 days. Because if it's not done in the next 7 days, I guarantee you it's not going to get done. As business coaches, one of the things we do is we work with businesses to help them apply the right knowledge in the right way at the right time through planning, and also through holding people accountable. When we have a plan, when we have a strategy, making sure you do what needs to be done. So that's what I do as a business coach. Meet your business where it's at, get you clear on where you want to go, and help you have the plan to get there. So if you're interested in having a one-to-one, there's a link in the chat, calendly.com, Jeremy_Carter, and we'll do a one-to-one business coaching session with you to talk through wherever you're stuck in your business, really what's holding you back, what are your goals, and how can you move through that. To finish up today, a reminder, next month we have another webinar on recruiting and retaining a skilled workforce and team. The #1 asset of your business is your team members. So this is a do not miss webinar. And what we might do is we'll jump across to some of the questions that we've received. So let me come here. Do we have any software recommendations that we think are a must-have for use in marketing brand awareness?
There's not really one particular software program that we ever recommend to any client. It's really depending on, again, the strategy that's in place. So, I mean, for example, we use a software platform called Metrical, which is for all of our social media scheduling purposes. Saying that, we've got over 100 clients that use at least 3 platforms. So a platform like that for my business is very much needed.
I think having a CRM is good.
CRM system, absolutely.
And like it depends on the type of business you are, but something that, I mean, we use, work a lot through MailChimp and Campaign Manager for EDM and for databases and things. But if you've got one that's built in like a HubSpot or a Zoho or something like that, they're always very good too. But again, it depends on the type of business. Like real estate's used all the specific.
I'm just
I'll say this
around HubSpot. HubSpot's also very good.
Yeah, HubSpot is a good. Yeah.
A lot of these software packages, they have freemium, so you start and it's free, but then you upgrade.
Yep.
And one of the things people often don't take into account is the cost of the software is probably only about 1/3 of the cost, because we need to factor in time for training and we need to factor in time for customization to get it to work really well.
Yeah.
And again, if a project's worth doing, it's worth doing right. I know people who jumped onto HubSpot and they're paying these huge amounts of money, but getting no value because they didn't get the training and they didn't do the customization. HubSpot, when it's done well, is a fantastic tool, but you've got to make sure that you implement.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to learn with HubSpot. So that's one thing I'd say around HubSpot is you're spot on. You need to ensure that you're educated around these platforms. One of our clients, Liqueur, which is based in Caringbah, they're a wellness business. They use and started their business using MindBody, which was an excellent platform for them, not just for building bookings, but also to generate that data around, say, a customer's using 3 services, but there's 10 services, then it's actually using that one software system to identify the services that they're not using to then retarget. So there are software systems. Again, it really depends on the business, and because there's so many out there. It's actually about taking a step back and working out what's the best one for your business.
So another question is, are there any free media monitoring services? Google Alerts is the only one that I'm aware of. Google.com/alerts, where you can actually track if people are mentioning. But I know there are specialist social media platforms that will track across all the different social media platforms.
Anything that's free, I would be careful.
No.
But no, I've not ever come across any free media monitoring.
Have a question here. I'm a translator with extensive media and PR experience, and I'm looking to start a business that leverages both of these skills. How do I position my business uniquely?
Build a marketing strategy.
100% agree. I would say that again, one of the things to think about is ChatGPT has really opened up a lot of possibilities, but you want to see where you have a niche. And again, if you're a translator, the biggest value these days is not so much the ability to translate, but rather your understanding of culture. And how do we, then pitch that to companies that want to do business with the cultures that we have the experience in? How do we develop the right angles, and how do we make sure that, a great example of this, there used to be Chevrolet, the car manufacturer in the US. They had a car called the Chevy Nova, and they sent it to Mexico, and they didn't realize that in Spanish, Nova means does not go. Or Mitsubishi Pajero, and Pajero in another language is actually wanker. And they couldn't figure out why they weren't selling any of these cars. So cultural sensitivity is really important to keep in mind, again, when we're selling, what works in Australia may not work in the US, definitely won't work in France. Question on best ways to manage marketing content or when to schedule it. So here's the thing. If you want to do social media right, it needs to be consistent. And it's a lot of pressure to think about, well, what am I going to post about today? So my suggestion is come up with a calendar of all the different, you can use ChatGPT to brainstorm different topics, come up with a calendar of what you're going to talk about. And then it makes it really easy, because there's a big difference between being in creative mode and being in delivery mode. So do all your creative work as a block, and then move the execution to when you want to push it out.
What we do for our clients as well, Jeremy, is actually building out quite a detailed content pillar sort of table where we look at all the pillars of the business to ensure that we're capturing content for every single one of those pillars. So
and the pillars generally focus on the USPs and the strengths of the business as well. So part of the strategy, there's a SWOT analysis, and then obviously we look at USPs as we mentioned, and from that we form the content pillars. So all the strengths of the business, everything we want to talk about, everything that they do, all those highlights.
Their service offering, how they're placed in the community, if there's any community work that's been done, any trends within the industry. It might be a new, if you're in the Pilates space, it might be a new, type of exercise or a piece of machinery that latest and greatest that you want to make sure. So that would fall under the news and trends section within the content pillars. So content shouldn't ever be just far out, I haven't put anything online yet, I need to post something. What is it going to be? It should be well planned and well thought out, so that, for us, we are at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance of content, keeping in mind that there are things that are maybe seasonal or whatnot that are thrown in here and there at a last minute, which is fine, but it's just ensuring that you do have those pillars of content well thought out.
Fantastic. Well, my goodness, we covered some ground today. Look at this feedback. I wish we could be hearing more from the Collective Co, who are the marketing experts. They had great practical ideas, not only theory. Thanks, everyone. So stay tuned. We may see some more workshops in the future, or if not, get in contact, knock on their doors, demand that they run more marketing educational workshops to support you in the local community. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and hope we see you at our webinar next month on recruiting. Round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.